Black Ops Cold War is officially out now for PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. So I want to show you guys the best settings you guys can do so you can have the best and most optimal gameplay and do really well in Cold War. So real quick before we get into today's video, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Currently, only 5% of you guys are subscribed. The rest of you are all new viewers, so I really appreciate a sub as we're on the road to 10k subscribers. So getting into the best settings. Number one, this is very important, sensitivity. A lot of this is very preference based. I'm going to give you guys a good beginner setup as to where to start, adjusted to your preference. A good starting sensitivity would be 6.6. You guys have too high of a sensitivity, your accuracy is going to be very garbage and you're going to be moving out way too fast and not able to catch enemies really well. On the other hand, if you put it all the way at like 1 or 2, you're going to be way too slow and won't be able to react in time to enemies. I recommend 6.6 is a good starting one. If it's too slow for you, bump it up to like 7 or 8. If it's too fast, go down to 5. But I definitely recommend if you guys can't handle 6, just try to stick with it and get better at it and adjust to it. Anything below 6 I feel is a bit too slow. Next up, number 2 here, we got the ADS stick sensitivity. Basically, it just says like when you're ADSing, how sensitive is your stick compared to your like ADS speed. 1 is the base sensitivity. I definitely recommend you guys lower it down to 0.8. I think that's the way to get the most absolute best accuracy. Next up is slowdown and strafing aim assist. You want to make sure that this is enabled. Definitely a big setting to have enabled. Common question that I get in my settings videos is what stick layout is the best one. It's very preference based on like what you use. If you have a scuff, keep it at default, but mess around with like bumper jumper, stick and move, all that tactical, all that stuff. It's very preference based, but I recommend you guys stick with default or something basic. Now there's a new setting in Cold War called stick input threshold. So stick input threshold is like a dead zone to help have less sway with your controller. The base is 5 and 99, so the input is the minimum of where it should be. If your controller has no issues with stick drift, keep it at 5, but if it does have stick drift, just increase a little bit up to like 15 maximum, and keep the max input threshold at 99 no matter what. Just keep that as the highest one possible. It just means like the radius of how big your controller is, and yeah, just keep that at 99 and just go from 5 to 15 depending on how high your stick drift is. Next up is sprint behavior. What this means is basically how you sprint. Make sure to keep this on hold. So this means whenever you want to sprint, you just hold down your left thumbstick and it'll sprint. Now with Cold War, this new setting for consoles, it's called FOV. You guys don't know what this is, it's the field of view. Basically it means how wide you can see when you're like, it basically just means how wide you can see on your screen. If you put this too high, you won't be used to it and it'll be a huge change from 80 to 120, it'll be a big change. You'll probably get a headache, probably won't be able to handle it that well, and you'll probably lose some frames as well. So a good starter FOV is 100 personally. If this is your first time like adjusting FOV, definitely recommend starting at 100 and adjust it based on your preference. If you think it's too wide, I'd lower it down to like 95, a bit more than that. If you can handle more, turn it up a little bit, and yeah. Now next up is a setting that we've had in Modern Warfare and older Call of Duties, which is motion blur. Make sure you guys disable this. If you guys turn it on, your game will look kind of like blurry and kind of like blurry and very like unfocused, and just whenever you move you're gonna get like a headache and get dizzy because it's literally like a useless setting to have. Now next up we're gonna get into the audio settings tab. There's a lot of different audio settings now in the game. It's pretty similar to older CODs, but it's basic as well. So first up, for music volume, I have this completely off. If you want to hear the cool music effects and all that stuff, turn it on, but I definitely recommend you guys lower it a lot. Because it's gonna be too loud and too much to hear at the start of a game. And another thing, now next up is the sound effects volume. You want to lower this just a little bit, not too high, and so the game's not too loud, but keep it around 80 to 90, around there. Next up is dialogue volume. This is like the announcer, what he says and all that stuff. So for example, say they call in a UAV, this is what the announcer says. And it's also your characters, if they call it out, like saying like, oh, he's on B flag, that's what you're hearing. You don't want to mute it all the way, but you also want it to be kind of low, around 75%. You don't want to drown out your game, but you also want to be able to hear it. Next up is cinematics volume. I recommend you guys keep this at 50%. For the audio preset, I recommend using boost low. Basically means whatever low sounds there are in Cold War, it just boosts them up so you can hear them better. And for hit marker sound effect, make sure that it is enabled so you can actually hear whenever you get a hit marker. And last up is the voice chat. Make sure this is enabled. If you want to like hear funny reactions or whatever, or talk to your teammates or talk to your enemies, whatever, make sure this is enabled. If you don't want to deal with the toxicness or whatever, just mute it all the way. And yeah. And now this is a big thing that's in Cold War. This is a new setting that we've never seen before. This is called HUD elements. It basically says it basically shows what you could see in the game. To a lot of new players, you guys might not understand this and maybe be very like intimidated because there's so many settings all at once. Basically, it's just customizations as to preference to how clean you want your game to look. If you want it to be the normal way and keep it simple, keep it how it is. Do not touch any settings at all, because you could actually change. If you, for example, disable, you can disable one of the settings which you can no longer see if you get hit markers, which kind of makes it like hardcore. Which I definitely do not recommend. Keep it how it is. If anything, if you want to change anything, is you can change the player icons so that way it's only abbreviated, or it's very just the icon only. That way you have less things popping up on top of your enemies and your teammates. But yeah, this is a very intimidating setting, but just literally don't mess with it too much. Only thing I recommend you guys change is the HUD elements, or sorry, only thing I recommend you guys change is the names, icon names. Last up, some miscellaneous settings as well is controller vibration. You want to make sure this is disabled, because if your controller shaking too much and it's like rumbling too much, it's gonna mess up your aim. Definitely don't recommend you guys do that at all. And there's a setting called auto move forward. Basically, what it means is you can let go your controller stick on the left stick and it'll still move forward. I would definitely recommend you guys turn this off unless you're playing ground war or Warzone, when it's like a huge map, you're gonna be running a lot and walking a lot. And then maybe turn it on. And for sprint behavior, I recommend just keeping it on hold, and that basically means whenever you sprint forward, the way you enable it and keep it enabled is like holding it. You can't just let it go and it'll keep it moving forward. So yeah, that's all my settings for Black Ops Cold War. Definitely recommend you guys try this out yourselves. Mess with it a little bit and just on your own preferences, but that's like my main base one that I recommend. Yeah, be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you are new. And I will be uploading and unlocking gold camo video later today, so be sure to check out the channel later tonight. Make sure the notification bell as well, so you can see any notifications from my channel.